Chad Pergram's live up on Capitol Hill. This had been talked about, Chad, our senior producer for the Hill, but it was uncertain whether he would do it because it seems certain that there will be legal challenges.
There will be. He has under the statute the ability. There's about multiple reasons as to why you can declare a national emergency, and he does have firm ground there. But the thing I would look more carefully at, Shep, is what we call transfer authority. So if you have individual spending bills and they've only allocated $1.375 billion for the border wall, does he go around Congress and try to move money from, say, account A to account B inside that spending bill without getting the blessing of Congress? Part of the statute says that you have to get a sign-off by the Appropriations Committee. Part of the statute says you can go around that. Or does he, say, take the Department of Homeland Security spending bill and then dip into the military spending bill, the Defense Appropriations Bill, or what we call the VA MILCON, Military Construction Bill, and go across spending bills? That, Shep, could be where there is a greater legal challenge. That's the bigger problem right now. And, the other thing, Shep, that's going to be very important is whether or not this decision to declare a national emergency actually affects the vote count. Now, what we're going to have happen at 3:30 here on the Senate floor is what we call a cloture vote to end debate on the underlying spending package. Remember, these are 7 spending bills. One of them is for the Department of Homeland Security, and that's the most nettlesome because it has the wall issue there. They need 60 votes to end debate on that, and then go for, if they get 60 votes, then the Senate will vote actually up or down on passage. Here's the other issue. I think it was very significant that Mitch McConnell waited and waited. We thought we might vote earlier on this, but he waited till he had an assurance from the president he would sign the bill to call this vote this afternoon, Shep.
This matter of declaring a national emergency, John Roberts we'll go to John Roberts at the White House in just a minute, but John, this is something, to what degree there is really influence, I don't know, sitting here as one who does the news and doesn't do the commentary, but all the people who are out there making noise for him have said, okay, go ahead and do this, but you better sign a national emergency. How much of an effect has that had? Do we have a way to know?
Well, I think he's got a lot of backup from people like Mitch McConnell. He's got backup from Senator Lindsey Graham, who weeks ago said that the president should give a certain amount of time to negotiations, and if he doesn't get what he wants at the end of the negotiations, declare a national emergency. I just got off the phone with a White House official who says, in fact, that, McConnell spoke to the president, and that's what was said in the conversation. So, I mean, that's a huge piece of news that the president's going to sign this, but at the same time declare a national emergency. Now, Chad was talking about the intricacies of this transfer authority and reprogramming money within certain. It's like, think that you've got a farm. Think of the federal government as a farm, and the farm's got a bunch of silos on it, and each one of those silos is filled with money. And you're allowed to move some money around within each of those silos, and you're also allowed to move certain amounts of money in between the silos. Now, if you declare a national emergency, it gives you greater leeway to be able to move money around in between those silos. And White House attorneys have looked at this for months, this idea of a national emergency, and they have identified certain baskets of money that they believe can be applied to building a border wall. Each time you dip into a different basket, though, you're increasing the level of potential pushback and your potential risk for a legal challenge. So there's some baskets of money they believe they have that they can use, and nobody's going to be able to challenge them. But once they go through those baskets of money and pick up the next basket, that comes with a little more risk. And then each basket after that comes with an increasing degree of risk. So as you move this money around inside, specific silos like the DHS silo, or you move from the DOD silo into the DHS silo, or energy into, just for example, into the DHS silo, you get increasing risk. So it's not clear how much money the president might be able to move around before he ends up in court. But I do know that the OMB Office of Management and Budget here at the White House, has identified far more than the $5.7 billion the president originally wanted in these baskets of money that it believes it can move around. They have to make a decision on to what degree do they risk inviting a legal challenge here, because once you get enjoined, then you run the risk of almost everything getting enjoined in the courts.
I want our viewers to hear what Mitch McConnell said on the floor here.
I've just had an opportunity to speak with President Trump, and I would say to all my colleagues, has indicated he's prepared to sign the bill. He will also be issuing a national emergency declaration at the same time. And I've indicated to him that I'm going to support the national emergency declaration. So for all of my colleagues, the President will sign the bill. We'll be voting on it shortly.
So there's Mitch McConnell. John Roberts, what's the national emergency?
Well, first of all, the reaction is wow. I mean, a lot of people thought that the president might use this option, but there was a lot of thought that he probably wouldn't use the option. He has said many, many times that he would rather do it legislatively, but it's clear that the president thought that he could not do it legislatively, so now he's going to declare the national emergency. The national emergency, as the president sees it, is a humanitarian and economic emergency that exists across our southern border. Tens of thousands of people are being apprehended every month by Customs and Border Protection, the Border Patrol, Immigration and Customs Enforcement for crossing over into this country or being in this country illegally. Customs and Border Protection facilities are filled to bursting. There are a lot of family units. There are a lot of unaccompanied children that are coming across the border. And the president believes that the best way to deal with that is to build a border barrier, add an additional 200 and some odd miles of fencing, particularly in Texas. But here's the rub with that. When you're talking about these migrants, these illegal migrants from what are called the Northern Triangle countries of Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and El Salvador, they are people who simply want to get their feet on American soil so that they can be picked up by the Border Patrol. And the president himself, a couple of weeks ago, in response to a question I put to him, acknowledged that because you cannot build a fence right on the border in Texas, you can't build it in the floodplain of the Rio Grande. You have to build it, a couple of 100 yards in. In some cases, the wall is a mile in from the border. All those people have to do is cross the Rio Grande, and in some areas you can float across, in some areas you can walk across. And if they get their feet on U.S. soil, they give themselves up to the Border Patrol, they get into the system where by and large they get released into American society. Some of them do return for their appointed court date, some of them don't. Even if they come for their first court date, they very often don't come for their second court date, and so they disappear into American society. So build as much wall as you want in Texas. You're not going to stop the problem of these migrants who want to get caught by the Border Patrol from coming across. Now, where it could help is people who don't want to get caught, who get into the country. That would include people who just want to disappear into American society right away. They don't want to get caught by the Border Patrol. That could include criminal elements. It could include human traffickers. It could include drug smugglers and other people with nefarious intent to get across the border. They would get caught up, ostensibly, theoretically, by this wall, which would give Customs and Border Protection time to get to them before they hit these what are called vanishing points and disappear into the United States. So from that standpoint, it could be beneficial for Customs and Border Protection. But in terms of stopping the flow of migrants who are coming up from Central America who just want to put feet on U.S. soil, it wouldn't do much to stop them. And the president has admitted that. Jeff?
All right, John, thanks.